So without a doubt, the question I get asked the most is, how do I become a senior parachute rigger? And if you're looking for a quick answer to that, this isn't it. This is going to be a detailed explanation that should help you to get yourself all the way through senior rigger certification without dealing with anybody other than your local rigger. So I'm going to try and keep this so it's not in government speak. It's going to be in plain language where possible. I'm not going to give away any secrets. All the documents I'm going to talk about are going to be publicly available, and where possible I'll tell you the name of the document and I'll give you whatever chapter and verse we're in. And I'm going to try and give you real world answers to what's going on. So what the FAA says about becoming a senior rigger is you have to pack 20 parachutes of the type for which you seek a rating in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions and under the supervision of someone who already holds that rating. And you have to pass a written, oral and practical exam, and that's it. But you now know almost nothing about it still, so there's really not a lot of help there. Another question is, do I have to attend a parachute rigger's course? Well, as I said at the beginning, absolutely not. And if that's what you're going to do, you probably don't even need to watch this video because you'll be walked through everything by the course. But for those of you that are trying to do it at home, you're going to need my info. So what order do the events occur? And I already talked about you having to get your 20 parachutes packed and logged, and then you can go and meet with the FAA and fill out the form 8610-2 and get them to sign it. That gives you permission to go and take the written test, and once you've got a passing grade on the written test, you can get with a parachute rigger examiner and they'll do the oral and practical exam. So that's the sequence of events. Oh, so what's the big deal? Well, there isn't one. The only problem is that the information you need, most people don't know how to give you. No disrespect to them, it's just that why would they remember all these little steps? So let's take them one by one. The 20 pack jobs. My advice on how to get this done is to go and download the manufacturer's instructions for your container and your reserve parachute and your AAD and read them. And I mean read them so that you can visualize each step of how you would do any given operation while you're packing that reserve. And when you don't understand it, write it down, because you can then discuss it with your local rigger. Now, your local rigger is already completely sick of wasting his time trying to teach people how to do this. Should say her as well. Because everybody who says I want to be a rigger wanders in, they waste 5 or 6 of your hours on the first day with the first pack job and you never see them again. So they're not excited about helping you. So if you're serious, what you want to do is walk in there and tell them you will offer to pay them at least $50 per pack job, and you commit to all 20 pack jobs with that rigger. That way, when they have to take extra time on the first one, 4, 5, 6 hours, they're going to get paid back later when it's only taken them 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Don't try and be a dirtbag and cheapskate them. Give them their $1,000. They're worth it. They're saving you hotel fees, travel expenses, and they're giving you a lot of knowledge. Now, a quick note here to the riggers. I get it that you guys are super unimpressed about teaching people this stuff. Trust me, I do. And there can be a variety of reasons. One is the student's going to misquote what you told them and say, oh, but he said so and so. I get it. I know that happens. And then the other one is some of them are worried that when you, the applicant, come and meet with an examiner and do something wrong, you're going to say, but he said so and so, and you get them in trouble. All right, I'm not about that. Just know that right off the bat. If I see something that's not great or there's a better way, I will suggest it to you at some point. And if it was unsafe, I'd let the other guy know just to be a healthy community, but I'm not out to get you. That's not my thing. I'm not one of those guys who throws a hissy fit. I'm already over it. And make sure you log those parachutes in accordance with the Federal Aviation regulations, which, by the way, are also known as Code of Federal Regulations. So if you see FAR or CFR, same thing, get over it. Study. This is the bit that most people don't do. Because it's work and it's tedious, it's not fun. Study. If you want to become a parachute rigger, you will have to learn new information, and to do that, there's a certain repetition, a certain amount of effort it takes. That's your commitment to this. To study for the written test, download the software you get from Dauntless's website. It's awesome. If you do a quick search on the Dauntless FAA written tests, boom, there it is. Do it. Just spend the time. Also, download the FAA Parachute Riggers Handbook H8030-17 and read it. It's a free book. It's fantastic. It's your tax dollars at work. But read it, and you're going to have to read it quite a few times before you get the concepts. You're also going to want to download and read the CFRs 65, 91, 105, and AC 105. They're also in the back of your Sims manuals for the skydivers. And I'll say it one more time, study. And I don't mean just glazy-eyed run through it so you can say, oh, I punched the card. You need to have a good functional understanding of the rules. I, for one, am a total nerd when it comes to the FARs. But they're fun when you figure out how they all interlock with each other. Yes, I said they're fun, and I can stand by that. Once you've got your pack jobs done and you've already done some studying, set up an appointment with your local Flight Standards District Office, that's the FAA, and download the 8610-2 form and go to YouTube and watch the video I put there on how to fill it out. This is another incredibly boring video. It's not fun. It's how to fill out a form. The form is misleading. There are places on that form where it'll say month and date, and that's not even the format they want it in. So don't think you can just apply your brain and do it. You can't. Once you've got that form signed, you are now eligible to take the written test. Oh, and one more thing, the reason I wanted you to study before you do that is when you go to meet with the FAA, it is incredibly likely that the guy at the FSDO is going to ask you some questions. So you know what? You might want to know what the FARs are so you don't sound like a total fool. When you're ready to take the written test, which is what that form you got signed says that you are now eligible to test, do a search for catstest.com or lasergrade.com. When they open, plug in FAA Parachute Rigger Test, and that'll give you the locations and the information about it. You're looking at about $150, $200 now to go and take the written test. So you only want to take it once because it's expensive. Study again before you even go. You want to be getting in the high 90% range on the practice tests before you go anywhere near the test center. And you want to have read through the Parachute Riggers Handbook, because there's some stuff that's not in the practice test, but it's in that handbook. You can then make your appointment and you can go and pass the written test. Now you need to prepare for the oral and practical exam. Well, you already know how to pack. You've done it 20 times, and that was the point of doing that, was to develop your skills and get better at what you were doing. You've read through the Parachute Riggers Handbook quite a few times, so you've got a good idea, and you should go and search on YouTube for Skydiving Services LLC or Simon Wade. That's me again, and I already have put up quite a lot of videos about how to do aspects of rigging, and it's my intention to just keep doing it with whatever spare time I can find. I actually think we'd be better off if more people had that knowledge, and everything in life can't be about the last dollar, so I'll do my best there. But go and watch them and study and learn and practice and do all that stuff at your own drop zone. Download the FAAS 8081-25B, how's that? Parachute Riggers Practical Test Standards. This is the book your examiner will generate your test from. It's publicly available. Go get it, look at it, read it. And frankly, if you prepare for all of those questions, you're going to be a pretty awesome rigger anyway, which is the whole point. Flip through it. Read it. You're going to realize pretty quick that quite a lot of the questions are mandatory. So you know for sure you're getting them on the test. Boy, this is getting easier by the minute. In there it has all kinds of information about how we're going to use the booklet. It tells us also that your examiner is going to abide by the rules in the 8900.2 Designee Handbook. So there's more information in that. Now that really is a boring read. Even I struggle with that one. And it tells you also in here that when we're using this book, we must evaluate your knowledge and skill in sufficient depth to determine that the objectives for each task are met. When planning the test, we don't have to do it in the order you see in the book, so we can pick the sequence. As a matter of fact, where possible, they want us to combine tasks instead of making you repeat it. So if you've already done a seam or a patch, then sewing machine operation has been covered. So it tells us to do that in the book so we can make you a nice test. Now in the book, it contains 7 areas of operation. I'm going to call them A of O's in a little bit because it gets lengthy. And only 6 of them apply to senior riggers, and we'll look at more depth of them in a bit. It also tells us that the questions will let you know if they're applicable to senior or master riggers. So we can even delete some of them that will never apply to you as a senior rigger. That's great. And it says there's 3 different types of objective or task, and they are oral questions, and the clue for that is if it says exhibits knowledge of, it means it's a description, you're going to talk about it. Or if it says the word demonstrates, it means you're going to do it, that's the practical aspect of it. Or a combined objective where maybe you're going to have some questions on that subject and you're going to demonstrate some skills in that area as well. Now in that 8900.2, and you can read this slide yourself at home, but it tells us how to conduct the oral test. Well, you might want to know how we're going to conduct it, so here it is, publicly available document. And the real bit on this that I want you to get out of it, because this is a question I get asked a lot, is it says at point 4 here, although the answer to the oral question should be available in the Code of Federal Regulations, manufacturer's maintenance data or other aviation related data, the applicant must be able to successfully answer all oral questions without the use of any reference material. Boom! Don't bother calling me and arguing, I'm not interested. It tells me right there that when you're doing the oral, you don't get books. So I get asked a lot during my oral, can I use the rules or a book because I would in real life? No, and that's where it says you can't, right there. It's not about my opinion. I know a lot of FAA guys who say this is kind of crazy because they've been taught by the military. The military, absolutely, if you're doing Project X, they want you to have Book X with you as you go. It's a good idea, and frankly, you should do that in the real world. If you're packing a rig, have the manual. It's a great idea. But on the oral test, it is reasonable that we have to see what your baseline knowledge is. So that's why you don't get reference on the oral test. It also talks in there about how we're going to conduct the practical test. It tells us again that we're going to probably combine some areas. It tells us that the examiner is going to watch you do everything. And it also says that the DPRE must objectively, not subjectively, that means we need to compare it against some reference or some benchmark. We must objectively determine if the applicant's project is acceptable. The applicant must demonstrate proficiency and competence using basic skills. Where applicable, the applicant must demonstrate an approval for return to service standard and the ability to locate and apply the required reference materials. For instance, where an approval for return to service standard is not achievable, the applicant must explain why the standard cannot be met. So what did I just say? I said that we're shooting for a return to service, so that means if you pack a reserve, it should be done in a manner that can go jump. And it also says in there that if you can't do a project for some reason, let's say the AAD is not been maintained in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions, then you would have to tell us why you can't continue with that AAD, because it's not within tolerances. It goes on to say that the DPRE must provide all tools, equipment and reference material to support the test. So you don't have to bring anything if you don't want. We have to have that available to you. And it has to be in good working order, clean, functional, ready to go. It says the applicant may not use reference materials the DPRE has not provided. So you can't bring your own books. The applicant may use non-programmable calculators. I've no idea where you would. Applicants may use personal tools and equipment at the discretion of the DPRE. So ask us, bring them, show us, and then we'll decide on that one. And then it tells us that the designee must select the applicable areas of operation and tasks for an oral and practical test appropriate to the rating and certificate that you're seeking, and we should get them from the PTS FAA 808125. So not out of thin air. We get them out of that book. Evaluating the applicant's performance. Well, obviously you guys want to know how we're going to grade you. And again, it comes back to that we should not expect you to be competent in all phases, or exhaustively in all phases of overall maintenance, alteration and repair. We're looking for that basic skill again. So now let's look at the absolutes of your test. In the PTS it says that a senior rigger test will be as follows essentially. The person conducting the exam must select the tasks as noted in the following areas of operation. Additional tasks may be selected as deemed helpful in evaluating the applicant. So if we look at 6 areas of operation for a senior, 7 for a master, and the first area of operation, task E is mandatory, so you know you're getting E, so open the book and prepare for it. Great, we'll have a look at that in a bit. Area of operation 2, we know you're getting another E and one other task. Area of operation 3 is pack-in. 99% of you are going to be doing a back-type rating, so you're going to be packing a back-type parachute. Area of operation 4, we get to select any task that's appropriate for a senior rigger. Same in 5, and then in 6 you get task A is mandatory, and then we get to pick one other. Well, holy cow, we now know what half the test is because it was mandatory in those categories. That's fantastic. So now let's take a look at one of the pages in the PTS book. There it is. That's the book. This is the actual page number, so you know I'm not giving away the farm here. It says 1, area of operation certification. E, that was that mandatory task. Part 105, parachute equipment and pack-in requirements applicable to senior and master applicants, so either of those could be asked. It tells you what reference you can find the answer, and this is fantastic. So if you're studying at home, you now know to pull out the Code of Federal Regulations Part 105.43. It's in the back of your sim manual. This is the bit that talks about what kind of parachutes you've got to have, how often they have to be packed, who can pack them. It's all pretty simple, straightforward stuff, which is great. And now coming down here it says the objective is to determine that the applicant exhibits knowledge of. There's those words, exhibits knowledge, means it's oral. You're going to be giving me a verbal answer to this question. With regard to the use of single harness, dual parachute systems by describing, and then it goes on to tell you what those things are. This is great, you already know what your question is. Area of operation 2 is privileges, limitations, and we know that task E is mandatory. That's recordation. I didn't even know that was a word. And one other. So we'll pick one other off that list. And now I think about it, this shouldn't even be there. I don't think B is allowed for senior rigger applicants. So your list is even shorter on what to study, but it's all good stuff. You should know it. Now here's that mandatory question in area of operation 2E, recordation. So you know on your test that you're going to have to do something from part 65-131. And that something is that you're going to create a sample packing record and maintenance record. Well, that's a piece of cake, because you've already done it 20 times. When you were packing those parachutes, you filled out the data card and you filled out your logbook, and that's what it's asking you to do. Big difference being on your test, depending on your examiner, he might just give you a sheet of paper and say, go for it. So there's no prompts there. But the good news is you'd be allowed a reference, because it's a practical. You can have part 65-131 open, and maybe that's how you want to go the rest of your life in your career. It's a good idea, go for it. We said that area of operation 3 is packing, and for most of you it's back type parachute. If you were a weird guy that was doing just a chest rating, then it'd be all the same stuff here, but it'd be for chests. And if we take a quick look, we see that the first part of it is inspecting the complete assembly. Awesome. And the last part of here is making all the required record entries. Well, wait a minute, we just did records. Well, that's fantastic. So we can probably even combine. This is one of those combination areas where you might be checking off a different box than you even know while you're doing it. Area of operation 4. You guys can read down the list in your own time, but that's the stuff you should know for your examiner to pick from. Same story in area of operation 5. The good news being, if you prepare for all this stuff, you're going to be an awesome rigger, which is kind of cool. Area of operation 6. Well, we know that A was mandatory. What is A? Single patch, basic patch, canopy repair. Great. So you know you're going to do a canopy patch. Well, if you took my advice and you search YouTube, you'll find videos out there on how to do it. You can prepare at home. Piece of cake. And one other task, well, you know, this would be a place where a combination could be done easily with, say, sewing machine operation would be an easy one, because you're already doing it. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but, you know, it's possible there may be some combining of questions going on. Great. So let's take a quick look at that patch that we know you're going to do, and it tells us what documents you can use as your reference. Where you see PPM, it means Pointer's Parachute Manual. These volumes 1 and 2, these very much used to be the Bible, and they're still good publications. Nice to have if you've got the extra money. And also the Parachute Rigger's Handbook, the 83-17, which is free and good, very good. And it takes you through all the stuff that your examiner is going to be looking at. Great. So you guys now know most of what you've got to do to prepare for the test. Now, I want to take a moment and talk about urban legends. You've probably heard them. I have heard, oh yeah, well on my test they had me rebuild a parachute and a harness container and then, you know, pave the road outside the building. It's crazy. No, they didn't. What your examiner did was select questions from PTS. Because if I was doing a test like that, you would quite rightly complain to the FAA that I was not doing a fair and objective test. I was trying to fail you. And frankly, that would be true if I went that ridiculous. The FAA wants us to do a test that's appropriate to your skill as well. So the FAA doesn't speak parachute rigger, they speak pilot, they speak mechanic. So the example they give us is, they say, and this is for mechanics, they say if you have a mechanic applicant and she is a crop duster, don't give her a jet engine and sheet metal project, give her dope and fabric and a carburetor. Well, same here. I mean, if you're coming from a civilian background and then I pull out some bizarre, obscure military stuff that's all the way over here on the knowledge spectrum, well, that's kind of ridiculous, frankly. And vice versa, if you're a military guy and then I go and, you know, focus on just the latest and greatest crazy sports stuff, I'm kind of not doing a reasonable test that assesses whether or not you know what's going on. Which isn't to say that I'm only going to test you on stuff you're super familiar with, but we've got to keep it real, kids. If you're not successful on the test, the examiner will let you know in writing where you came undone. That's important. and they have to do this, and it'll be in the remarks area on the back of that FAA Form 8610-2. So when you leave, you'll know what to go and study. Now, I can't swear that they're going to test you just on that area or whatever, but either way, you need to go and fill in those blanks, at the very least. Nobody likes to fail, and it doesn't happen very often, I'll be completely honest with you. Most people are fairly well prepared, and yeah, I'll talk more about it in a minute, but if you think you've been treated unfairly, contact your Flight Standards District Office. But don't just call them and tell them that you're unhappy. I mean, everyone's unhappy that fails. But if you genuinely think the guy was out to get you, if you've got a good story, if you can say, well, he failed me for this, but I did it right, and you should take that up with the examiner at the time as well, by the way, then fair enough. But there's not much of that going on, so I'm not going to dwell on it. So anyway, that's the nature of it. Now let's talk about how to arrange this oral and practical test, because you guys are going to download PTS, go and study, do the YouTube stuff, start giving some money to your local rigger. When you're ready to arrange an oral and practical exam, go search on the FAA website for DPREs, Designated Parachute Rigger Examiners. They've got a pretty good list on there that'll get you to them. And frankly, the ones that are really available to do a lot of tests are fairly well known to people in the skydiving industry. But give them a call, and by the way, not all examiners are a good fit for all students, so you know, shop around and make sure you get one that you're comfortable with too. And I don't, you know, I might rub some people the wrong way, I know I do, and you know, you probably shouldn't test with me because you won't enjoy it, or you'll feel under pressure. Anyway, so contact your DPRE and they'll conduct a pre-test interview. Frankly, this is a big help, and it's why we don't have a huge failure rate, because, you know, after asking the applicant a few questions on the phone and they kind of don't really know the answers to them, you know they need to go study some more. Or, you know, have you ever sewn? No. Okay, well then you shouldn't come yet. You need to go and know at least how to do a patch. It's a mandatory question. Don't book a flight just yet. Also, they'll be checking to make sure you didn't get into any trouble between taking the written test and taking the oral and practical test, because if you get a drug crime or an FAA certificate suspension, you're going to have to go to timeout for a little while. They won't let you retest, but give us a call anyway so we can kind of figure out when and what and how, what's next. Make sure the examiner outlines the fee structure. I put that in there to protect myself. Sometimes I get all caught up in the conversation and we don't talk about the money till they've flown here. So make sure that's under control before you come, and ask what to bring. Or if you particularly want to bring something, ask if it's okay. Now finally, those poor guys, ladies in the military get a break. There is a workaround for civilians and military personnel that are working in the jobs as parachute riggers, or who have been in the past 12 months, having just left the military. You guys are eligible to just take a written test on Part 65. Now you still have to go meet with the FAA, you have to prove that you've got the 20 pack jobs, you have to fill out that form, that 8610-2, then study using the Dauntless software still is my advice, but you only have to pass the written test, and it's a short test. Then you go back to the FAA and they issue your certificate. So I'm completely cut out of that loop. There is actually a video I've got on YouTube on how to fill out that version of the 8610, because it's just a little bit different. So what about riggers courses? Well, as I already said, you don't have to take one. Me, I just wanted to, originally the reason I got into rigging was I just wanted to be able to pack my own reserve. And frankly, it was mostly so that I didn't have to wait on other people. I was doing more crew jumping at the time, had a tendency to use my reserve a lot, it was just easier. So not everybody's going to necessarily want to bomb out and do a course. I've just talked about how not to do a course, but there is advantages to it. First of all, you're going to need almost none of what I've told you, because you'll be led by the hand through the process. Appointments will be made, paperwork will show up, someone will show you how to fill it out. The studying you still have to do. You can fail your test still on a course, because the studying and the effort, that bit we can't do for you. The money doesn't do that. You have to bring the effort as well. I personally do have a desire to see a lot more parachute riggers on drop zones. I think there are not nearly enough right now, mostly because it's such a pain to learn how to do it and then to find out how to go and take the test. It's just not accessible. So this is part of what I'm trying to do, is change that dynamic so that more people can spend a bit less money and go and get this rating. And I think it makes us all safer and better and makes the industry healthier, but maybe I'll get off my soapbox. All right, moving on. Last thing, as you guys probably know, I like to put a shout out, and I'm afraid I don't have a picture, I forgot to put it on the slide. There are certain people in our business that are just legends, or have done amazing things, or have just been helpful to me personally, and I want to take some moment to thank them. So Dave DeWolf is this guy's real name, although he goes by Handsome Dave, and you'll know why if you ever meet him, because he's incredibly handsome. It's just the truth. Dave is a legend, and he is the guy who really started parachute rigger courses, so I can thank him for a lot of what I do for a living. But I would say the majority of parachute riggers out there in the field right now have been through his course. So if I'm not your guy, I would certainly strongly recommend you go see Dave, although frankly there's a lot of other names we know and they're great people. I can't think of any that I'd say, oh, don't. I mean, I'm sure there are a few, but they're all pretty good. But just see which fits you best. And then my very last note, if you've seen any of my other videos, I am really tired of the backbiting and bad mouthing that goes on in skydiving, and I'm over it and I don't like it. So please, folks, calm down, find it in your heart to have a bit more compassion. Don't reach for the knife right away, and let's all have a bit of fun out there. See ya.